All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations to the 144,130 elect. All right, the hopeful men laboring in this truth. All right, serving Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, pushing his word. Back with another lesson. And I'm not going to make this one too long. I just got a couple articles that I wanted to bring out pertaining to uh, the region of Africa. All right, now it's we focus on the Middle East, which that is the focal point. The least of the flock, drawing them out. Um, However, you still have things happening in other regions of the earth that are going to contribute to that situation overall, because we got to remember that, matter of fact, the scriptures tell us that all these nations is going to be gathered over in the Middle East. Okay. Um, let's see. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong." So that's what's happening with all these nations. All right. They're taking resources that were allocated to infrastructure and things of that nature, tilling and farming, agriculture, and applying that to war. Okay. It says, "Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord." Okay, because I don't want to jump it. Verse 12, it says, "Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about." All right, so the valley of Jehoshaphat is in the Middle East, okay, which is Saudi Arabia. That's why you have a lot of fighting going on over in that region, because that's going to be the focal point, the nucleus of World War III. All right, so you have all the heathen gathering themselves together, linking up, either joining certain packs or leaving certain packs, strategically making their chess moves in preparation for World War III. Okay, and also in the height of World War III, you're gonna have the angels of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua that's gonna come down and get busy fighting those militaries as well. All right, the real militaries. All right, because it tells you that in Second Ezra that these nations is gonna leave off the fight that they have with one another to come against the Lord and the angels. Okay, verse 13, it says, "Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for the wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision." All right, so back in verse 12, the valley of Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat. All right, the Most High's judgment. All right, so these nations are just being gathered uh, over in that region to ultimately be judged of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, now, so reading that, um, so this is from RT. It says 3 West African states quit regional bloc. It says Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger accuse ECOWAS of acting under foreign influence in violation of its founding ideals. All right, so the 3 countries mentioned was Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Right, so let's grab this real quick. So Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. So here's Niger, right here in the middle. All right. Burkina Faso, right there, and Mali. All right. So those is, those three countries in itself take up a big chunk of Africa. All right. So these three countries here left off from ECOWAS, which we'll get into it. It says the military governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have announced their exit from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. So this is primarily JAKES, all right, in West Africa. All right, that was formed the Economic Community, kind of like the EEC, the European Economic Community, which is now the EU. All right, it says claiming the regional bloc has become a tool for foreign powers posing a threat to member states, which that is correct, because all those organizations and whatnot that are set up over in West Africa are all controlled by Edomite countries. And quite frankly, these Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso is, they want nothing more to do with it. All right, they're tired of being puppets for Europeans. All right, it says the decision was made public on Sunday in a joint statement by the coup leaders, who have faced increasing pressure from ECOWAS to transition to democratic rule. All right, so it says the coup leaders have faced increasing pressure from ECOWAS to transition to democratic rule, following the overthrow of Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum last July. The latest coup in the West African region, the bloc threatened to use force to restore democratic rule after multiple attempts to persuade military rulers to reverse the coup failed. All right, because if you remember back in the last summer of 2023, you had the coup that took place over in Niger. All right, and then you had all those West African countries that was banding together to and threatening Niger with a military invasion and what have you. All right. It says both Mali and Burkina Faso have warned against the French-backed military action in Niger. All right, and it's the reason why it's French-backed is because that's who the French got their hand in that pot. All right, French-backed military action in Niger, claiming that any such move would be interpreted as an act of war against the countries. All right, so they ain't having that. It says a 15-nation economic group has sanctioned Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, including suspending them in response to the takeovers. The alliance has said it does not recognize the military-led regimes and have vowed to no longer tolerate power grabs in the region, which has also witnessed a successful coup in Guinea and recently attempted one in Guinea-Bissau. There's more to this. Let me see. Okay, here we go. It says on Sunday, Burkina Faso. I'm gonna jump down some. It says on Sunday, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger denounced ECOWAS for failing to support them in fighting the region's decade-long jihadist violence. All right, and so what me and the brother was talking about this last night, and if you remember, back in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there, you had the same ISIS, I believe it was, that was in Syria, and Syria called upon the U.S. to help them rid ISIS out of their country, and nothing happened. But then when they turned to the Russians got them damn ISIS up out of there quick as hell. Went in there and started bombing shit. If you remember. So this is the same situation over in these African countries that because you gotta remember all of North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, that's all controlled by Arabs. All right, and they're starting to push down further into the interiors of Africa. In these countries like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso ain't with it. All right, and they know that jihadist BS is pretty much promoted by the Europeans. Okay, so they threw it. It says when the states decided to take their destiny into their own hands, it, being ECOWAS, adopted an irrational and unacceptable posture by imposing illegal, illegitimate, inhumane, and irresponsible sanctions in violation of its own principles, the military leader said. So these three states, or three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, once they decided, hey, look, we good, we going to take our chances on our own. When they did that, the ECOWAS, all right, the rest of those 15 West African states, countries, pretty much, did some BS in retaliation. So they're calling them out as hypocrites of, look, y'all gonna do this, y'all gonna do some irrational, unacceptable BS, some illegal, illegitimate, inhumane, irresponsible sanctions, but that's going against your own principles. All right. So that just shows you that, most likely those sanctions was pretty much drafted up and orchestrated by, the influence of the Europeans. Okay. It says after 49 years of existence, the valiant people of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger note with great regret, bitterness, and great disappointment in ECOWAS and have decided in complete sovereignty on the immediate withdrawal from the bloc, according to the statement. All right. So there you go. Let me see. Okay. Andriy Maslov, head of the Center of African Studies at Russia's Higher School of Economics, told RT ECOWAS' desire to make money from donor programs in cooperation with the EU and other Western institutions. All right, there you go, the EU and the West. All right, institutions prevented the organization from pursuing policies in the interests of member states. So Russia's putting them on blast that those 15 member states of ECOWAS was pretty much getting bribed by the West, being America and the EU, and therefore, ECOWAS couldn't even function the way it was created to function. All right. So Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they was cool off that. It says ECOWAS has failed to capture its full potential and become a genuinely independent regional organization, Maslov claimed. All right. Now, so situation over in Africa, and it mentioned the West, the EU, and Russia. All right. RT, Burkina Faso receives free Russian wheat. It says a donation ceremony took place in, I ain't even gonna try that, Ogadiju or whatever, following the delivery of humanitarian aid. It says Russia has donated 25,000 tons of grain to Burkina Faso as part of a humanitarian aid initiative. Russia Ambassador Alexei Saltykov confirmed on Friday. A ceremony marking the arrival of the wheat took place in Ouagadougou, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the capital of the African country. All 25,000 tons of grain were delivered to Burkina Faso from the port of Abidjan the Ivory Coast. It says it will be distributed to the needy population, especially the widows of the defenders of Burkina Faso, as well as the disabled. The ambassador said national representatives in Burkina Faso had thanked Russian President Vladimir Putin for the aid, which will improve the humanitarian situation in the country. The ceremony was attended by Minister of Communications, Culture, Art, and Tourism, Rimtalba Jean Emmanuel Ouedraogo, or however you pronounce that, and some more stuff. It says Burkina Faso is the latest African country to receive humanitarian shipments of wheat from Russia. All right, so there's other African countries that have been receiving wheat from Russia. All right, so that lets you know that Russia has an influence in Africa. All right, we just read about Mali, Burkina Faso, in Niger. All right. It says last December, Moscow sent an initial consignment of 25,000 tons of grain to Burkina Faso. At the second Russia-Africa summit last year, Moscow promised to provide free wheat to Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, Chad, and Eritrea. All right, now let's look at this. Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, Chad, and Eritrea. All right, so let's get some of those. So it mentioned Mali, Somalia, Chad. All right, so we got Mali right here, Chad right here, Somalia right there, Eritrea right there. Who else? Zimbabwe and Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso being right here, and Zimbabwe right here. All right. So one thing that stands out is kind of interesting to me is, Northern Africa. Like I said, these Northern African countries, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, have a heavy even Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan. It's a heavy Islamic presence there. Okay, but you got even Somalia. But now you got Eritrea as well. You got Russia stepping in and aiding certain of those countries. Okay. Pretty much, Russia aiding countries in the center of Africa. All right. The countries that divide Northern Africa from Central Africa. All right. Which is kind of interesting. Pretty much like a V line. Not a V line, but a straight line all the way across from Burkina Faso to Eritrea. All right. It's kind of interesting. It says, meanwhile, let me see. Hold on. Okay, it says a wide range of issues related to the development of foreign trade cooperation between Russia and Niger were discussed at a meeting the press service of the Eurochem Group reported. It says on December 28th, the company also announced that more than 34,000 metric tons of potash has been loaded at Ventspils port in Latvia, and it is currently on its way to Nigeria. All right, so you got the Nigerians about to get stuff from Russia. All right, so Russia is got a heavy influence in Africa at the current time. All right, now let's read this in Ezekiel 38. In 1, it says, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. All right, so Gog and Magog is referring to the landmass of Russia, because when you look on an ancient map, this whole region right here of Russia was known as Gog and Magog. All right, and today the people that inhabit that land is the so-called Russians. All right, which are Edomites, and the Lord is against them. All right, brothers, you know, might you know, we don't cheer for Russia, but Russia is the main country that's gonna get America out of here. So, you know, we want to see that happen. Okay. It says, and I will turn thee, and I will, hold on, let me see, verse 3, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with buckler and shields, all of them handling swords. So the Lord is going to turn Russia back to that old USSR powerhouse, okay? And the allies, whatever allies team up with Russia, you know, is going to be, you know, alongside them going to war, because that's pretty much what's happening. All countries is taking their sides. All right, and you got Russia providing, you know, weapons to certain countries, you know, grain to certain countries. All right, they just Russia just helped Belarus, which is its neighbor to the west. They just helped them with a nuclear power plant. All right, and then they also helped I want to say it was either in India. They helped India with some nuclear power plant as well. All right, so you got the Russians, you know, fulfilling prophecy. Now, let me see something real quick. All right, that's so Chad. It says another African country looking to ditch Paris for Moscow. The historic Moscow meeting between the president of Chad and Vladimir Putin helped outline new contours of Russia and Africa's future. It says, in many ways, the Russia-African summit that held in July 2023 is going on to this day. Since the event, the leaders of the three countries, South Sudan, Equatorial Guinea, and this week Chad, have visited Moscow. All right, so you got three African countries that went to go visit Moscow. So South Sudan, Equatorial Guinea, or however you pronounce it, and Chad, right? So let's look. You got Chad, which is right here in the center, South Sudan, boom, and Equatorial Guinea, which is down here, right here on the west coast. All right, boom. So them is more countries that pretty much separate Northern Africa from Central Africa. So we read a couple articles, and already it mentioned Nigeria, it mentioned Equatorial Guinea, all right, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, South Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia. All right, those is a bunch of like countries that literally are right there in the, you know, central part of Africa that pretty much divide the country in half, or the continent in half. All right, those countries pretty much separate the northern part of the continent from the southern part of the continent. All right, and that's all strategic. All right, make no doubt about it. It says, this does not include other high-level African delegations. For example, just a few days earlier, a delegation from Niger, headed by the Prime Minister, visited Moscow. These visits are happening in light of the growing trade turnover between Russia and Africa, as well as other structural changes in Moscow's Africa policy, says Chad and Russia. The visit by President of Chad, Mahamat Deby, is quite significant. This is one of his first foreign visits after the relative stabilization of the political situation there last month. The central authorities and one of the main opposition groups, less transformateurs, something French, had managed to reach a consensus and formed an inclusive government. In the process, launching a transitional period, a constitutional referendum has also been held. Secondly, Chad is a relatively new partner for Russia and Africa. During negotiations, it was mentioned that this was the first visit of the president of Chad to Moscow since 1968. Chad gained independence in 1960, and that's not a coincidence. Up to this point, contacts between Russia and Chad on both the political and economical levels have been limited to one-time deals in the field of military technical cooperation. In recent years, Russia has been increasingly interacting with non-traditional partners in Africa. An example, partners in Africa. An example, those countries with which the U.S. Here's the point. In recent years, Russia has been increasingly interacting with non-traditional partners in Africa. So people that Russia don't usually deal with in Africa, they've been dealing with. An example, those countries with which the USSR, all right, we just read it in Ezekiel 38. And those countries with which the USSR did not develop any active partnership for various reasons, including political and ideological ones, and where the Soviet legacy was not as strong as Algeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Angola, and so on. Algeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Angola. So these countries mentioned, these four countries mentioned, had a great relationship with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had influence in those three countries. Now, let's find out where these three countries are. All right. Algeria up here. Libya. What it said, Egypt and Ethiopia. Egypt and then Ethiopia. Boom. Let's read prophecy. Verse 4. Because it goes into, the buckler and shields, all of them handling swords. It says Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. So it mentioned Persia, right, which is Iran, right here. I mean, that's Iraq, excuse me. Iran. All right, that's Persia today. Ethiopia, which that was mentioned, the USSR had strong relationship with Ethiopia. All right, Egypt, Libya. Libya was mentioned in Ezekiel. Okay. It says Gomer and all his bands in the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands and many people with thee. All right, which Gomer is Turkey. All right. And Togarmah, I believe, is Armenians, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so these countries is going to be on the side of Russia, but it was quite a bit of African countries All right. Well, well, two African countries here in the scripture, but in the article, you got a lot of Hamitic countries that's siding with Russia. It says, verse 7, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. All right. Mm-hmm. So the point of Russia stepping in and aiding those African countries and whatnot ultimately is going to be for the purpose of being a guard unto them. All right. So I just wanted to bring those couple articles out. Showing that Russia's influence in Africa is it's prophetic. Okay. And there's another one here too, but turmoil going on in Sudan, all right, which is in Africa as well. All right, but I'll put these in the description box. But Lord willing, that was edifying. Until next time, shalom.